A warm morning to all of you. It's a Wednesday morning and we're back once again with a fresh edition of Breakfast News. I'm Preeti, with me is Rukma, and over the next 1 hour we get you through everything that's making it to the headline. This is the first comprehensive show we get for you every morning to make sure that your morning begins on the right note. To make sure that your tea or coffee right in the morning tastes even better, we get you everything from the national updates to international updates, sports, business, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour.
A very good morning to you, Preeti, and to all our viewers as well. And we'll be taking stock of all that's on the Prime Minister's agenda today as he visits Kushinagar and a slew of projects to be inaugurated. We'll be learning all about those in the 1 hour ahead. Also, as Preeti said, news from sports, business across the world and much, much more. All the COVID updates, the weather vagaries that many states are going through, are reeling from rather. But first, here are the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate Kushinagar International Airport in Uttar Pradesh. Prime Minister to lay the foundation stone of a medical college to be built at the cost of 280 crore rupees in Kushinagar to participate in an event marking Abhidhamma Day at Mahaparinirvan Temple.
Prime Minister to interact with the CEOs and of experts of global oil and gas sector via video conferencing at the 6th annual interaction meeting to explore potential areas of collaboration and investments in India.
Significant reduction in rainfall activity over Uttarakhand from today, says IMD. Predicts isolated to scattered showers. Prime Minister expresses grief over the loss of lives due to heavy rainfall in parts of Uttarakhand. Char Dham Yatra to resume today.
Over 99 crore doses of COVID vaccine administered so far. Recovery rate stands at 98.14%, more than 37 lakh vaccine doses administered in past 24 hours.
North Korea confirmed successful submarine launched missile test. Pyongyang describes it as the world's most powerful weapon. It comes weeks after South Korea unveiled a similar weapon of its own.
In sports, in T20 World Cup, Scotland and Bangladesh win qualifying matches. India today to take on Australia in second warm-up match at ICC Academy Ground in Dubai. And now let's take a look at the news in detail.
Yes, today is a special day for India's infrastructure and civil aviation sector. Yes, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Kushinagar International Airport in Uttar Pradesh. The inauguration of the airport will be marked by landing of a maiden flight from Colombo, carrying a delegation of Buddhist monks and also certain holy Buddha relics. Now, this airport will benefit Uttar Pradesh and Bihar as well. Take a look at this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Uttar Pradesh on Wednesday to inaugurate the Kushinagar International Airport. The international airport will facilitate the air travel requirements of international Buddhist pilgrims in India. The inaugural flight will land at the airport from Colombo in Sri Lanka, carrying 125 dignitaries and Buddhist monks. The Kushinagar International Airport has been built at an estimated cost of Rs 260 crore. It will facilitate domestic and international pilgrims to visit the Mahaparinirvana Sthal of Lord Buddha. The new terminal is equipped to handle 300 passengers during peak hours. Airport is an endeavor in connecting with the Buddhist pilgrimage holy sites around the world. The airport will serve nearby districts of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. This airport is an important step in boosting the investment and employment opportunities in the region. Tourism inflow is expected to rise by up to 20%.
डायरेक्ट कनेक्टिविटी ना होने के कारण आ नहीं पा रहे थे, वो आराम से यहाँ आ पाएंगे और जब यहाँ आएंगे तो उत्तर प्रदेश के आसपास के जो बुद्धिस्ट एरियाज हैं वहाँ भी वो जाएंगे। स्वाभाविक दृष्टि से यहाँ और इस परिसर में रहने वाले लोगों को उनके टूरिस्ट आने जाने का जो फायदा है, उनके व्यवसाय को जो फायदा है, वो मिलेगा।
Kushinagar is an international Buddhist pilgrimage center where Lord Gautam Buddha attained Mahaparinirvana. It is also the center point of the Buddhist circuit, which consists of pilgrimage sites at Lumbini, Sarnath and Gaya. Direct aviation connectivity with South Asian countries will make it easier for tourists arriving from Sri Lanka, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, China, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore to reach Kushinagar and experience the rich heritage of the region. The Prime Minister will also participate in an event marking Abhidhamma Day at Mahaparinirvana Temple and will also inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of various development projects in Kushinagar. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, this might interest viewers in the wider Indo-Pacific region. Kushinagar is an international Buddhist pilgrimage center. This is where Lord Buddha attained Mahaparinirvana or salvation, and it represents the final goal of Buddhism. Kushinagar is a part of the Buddhist circuit consisting of the pilgrimage sites at Lumbini, Sarnath and Gaya.
Kushinagar is the most important stop for the Buddhist pilgrims in the world. This is the same place where Lord Buddha attained Parinirvana at the age of 80, making Kushinagar one of the most important religious places of Buddhism. This very significant 21 feet long statue of Lord Buddha at Kushinagar in sleeping posture is visited by a large number of tourists across the globe.
ये मूर्ति 3 जगह से देखने में अलग-अलग फेस के रूप में दिखती है। जैसे मैं यहाँ पे खड़ा हूँ तो इस मूर्ति को यहाँ से देखेंगे तो महापरिनिर्वाण यानी कि आदमी मृत्यु अवस्था में लेटा होता है वैसी दिखती है, और मिडिल से जब इसको देखते हैं तो चिंतन मुद्रा में दिखती है, और जब वहाँ से कोने पे जाकर देखते हैं तो प्रसन्न मुद्रा में दिखती है। ये विशेषता है इस मूर्ति की।
For decades, Kushinagar was deprived its rightful place in the tourist map because of the lack of proper connectivity. This area of Purvanchal remains short of realizing its true tourist potential. But now, with the construction of an international airport, the narrative is set for a complete turnaround. Buddhist devotees, locals and businessmen are hopeful that a new chapter of development will begin, boosting tourism and also creating new avenues of employment.
कुशीनगर एयरपोर्ट का उद्घाटन करना बौद्ध राष्ट्रों के लिए, बौद्ध अनुयायियों के लिए बहुत खुशी की बात है, और जो हजारों की संख्या में लोग यहाँ आ रहे थे वो लाखों की संख्या में इस स्थान पर आकर के दर्शन पूजा वर्चन करेंगे, और आसपास के क्षेत्र में जो रोजगार है बहुत ज्यादा संख्या में रोजगार की बढ़ोतरी भी होगी।
जी, यहाँ एयरपोर्ट बनने से लोगों का फायदा होगा और मतलब अच्छी फैसिलिटी दी जाएगी। होटल बनने से आदमी को रोजगार मिलेगा और भी बाकी सारी फैसिलिटी दी जाएगी।
तो अब हमारे इंटरनेशनल हवाई अड्डे के थ्रू ये लोग को काम मिल जाएगा, अपना रोजी रोटी चला लेंगे, हम लोग की पढ़ाई की जो भी है वो फैसिलिटी बढ़ेगी।
Lakhs of Buddhist pilgrims from many countries like Myanmar, China, Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, Sri Lanka travel to India to visit places related to Lord Buddha every year. The Indian Railways also operates Buddhist Circuit special train, and now with the international airport in Kushinagar, this will enable ease of tourism at this important stop in Buddhist pilgrimage. Bureau Report, DD India.
Alright, our correspondent Arun is joining us on phone line. Arun, we've shown 2 detailed reports to our viewers of how important today's day is for Kushinagar. Spelling out details, you also tell us more about the program ahead through the day, and also how far will it further facilitate in enhancing tourism and employment opportunities in the region?
Well, we know the fact that, the cabinet gave its approval for the Kushinagar airport, and very soon this, construction of this new terminal as far as the airport is concerned has become reality. This shows that this for family transfers that all partners stays on a front foot as far as development work is concerned. Now, second important aspect is that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been focusing upon the fact that how can Buddha circuit, Ramayana circuits, all these can be created so that tourism can be attracted in our country. Now, in the post-COVID pandemic time, this fact that, during COVID pandemic time there was restrictions as far as tourism is concerned, but as the economy is opening up, India is also creating its infrastructure so that more and more tourists can be attracted to its destination. And Kushinagar is one of the prominent destinations as far as Buddha circuit is concerned. And various tourists from places like Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, China, Japan, Korea. The tourists, over in these countries, primarily Buddhism is very much prominent, and these tourists from these countries do visit Kushinagar. But unfortunately, till now there was no direct connectivity to reach Kushinagar. People used to get via train. They had to get down to Gorakhpur. After that, they used to take buses to Kushinagar. So this used to be very much hectic schedule for the tourists who were coming to visit Kushinagar. But now you have a direct flight connectivity, not only domestic connectivity, but also international connectivity. So if a tourist who wants to come directly from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, they can directly come to Kushinagar, land at Kushinagar. They can also visit the surrounding areas of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, whereby Buddhist circuits, our sites of Buddhist circuits are very much prominent. And after that, they can also play an important role as far as boosting the economic activities are concerned. So in that context, this event is going to be very much important, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be inaugurating the Kushinagar International Airport. And when we talk about this airport, the construction cost is close to 260 crore rupees, and yes, it has all the modern facilities. And of course, it is also green in nature as far as this Kushinagar Airport is concerned. And again, it will also boost the tourism and of course investment and economic activities in state of Uttar Pradesh. So in that context, this airport will play an important role.
And also the fact that the first flight will be from Sri Lanka. Buddhist pilgrims will be arriving very soon, and the fact that they will be bringing Buddha relics as well, very significant in terms of a symbolic message to the entire neighborhood, to the entire world and the entire country as well.
Absolutely, and the inauguration of this Kushinagar International Airport primarily will be marked by the landing of the inaugural flight at the airport. Now this flight is coming from Colombo in Sri Lanka, and it will be carrying Sri Lankan delegation of over 100 Buddhist monks and dignitaries. Now this also includes 12-member holy relic, and to that it will be bringing the holy Buddha relic for exposition. And the delegation also comprises of deputy heads of all the orders of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, and 5 ministers of the government of Sri Lanka, led by the cabinet minister Namal Rajapaksa. They are also coming in. So this signifies that how important this first flight is, and this also symbolizes that how easy the travel is going to be. And first flight coming from Sri Lanka. Now this is of course going to play an important role as far as developing international Buddhist circuit as well. Prominent places to visit as far as internationally as far as Buddhist circuit is concerned. So in that context, yes, the delegation of Entourage that is coming today, the first flight coming from Colombo, signifies how important this visit or primarily this airport is. And also let's not forget that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he will also visit the Mahaparinirvana temple, and he will offer archana and silver to the reclining statue of Lord Buddha. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be planting the Bodhi tree sapling today. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be participating in an event organized to mark the Abhidhamma Day. Now this day primarily symbolizes the end of 3 months rainy retreat, and this is very important for the Buddhist monk primarily. And yes, this shows that how primarily as far as the Buddhism is concerned, India is developing that infrastructure and creating that ecosystem, that tourism or tourists who are coming to visit India, they will get a proper infrastructure and visiting facilities primarily to visit places whereby Buddhist circuit is being developed. And in that context, today's visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, inauguration of the Kushinagar International Airport is going to play a significant role.
All right, Arun, thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent, Arun Sharma, telling us more about how important is the day today in Kushinagar. We'll keep you updated when the airport will be, the international airport, in fact, will be inaugurated. Let's turn focus on to other news now. In another event, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing and will be interacting with the CEOs and experts of the global oil and gas sector today via video conferencing. Now, it would be the 6th such annual interaction since 2016. The meeting will explore potential areas of collaboration and investments in India. The broad theme of the upcoming interaction is promotion of clean growth and sustainability. The interaction will also focus on areas such as exploration and production in hydrocarbon sector in India, energy independence, gas-based economy, reduction of emissions through clean and energy-efficient solutions, green hydrogen economy and biofuels, and waste to wealth creation. The CEOs and experts from leading multinational corporations and top international organizations will take part in this exchange of ideas.
India is inching ever closer to administering 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines. The total vaccination coverage has now exceeded 99.8 crores. In fact, over 37 lakh doses were administered in the past 24 hours itself. Health Minister has said India will cross the 1 billion mark soon.
India is running the fastest vaccination campaign in the world, and soon it will cross the 100 crore vaccine mark. Health Ministry expects that country will cross 100 crore vaccination mark in a couple of days or so far from now. So far, country has crossed the 99 crore mark. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya in a tweet said that we are at 99 crores. Go for it, India. Continue to rapidly march towards our milestone of 100 crore COVID-19 vaccinations. Meanwhile, Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan reviewed the progress of COVID-19 vaccination with health secretaries and National Health Mission NHM MDs of states and UTs through video conference. It was highlighted that a sizable number of beneficiaries who are eligible have not received their second dose. States and UTs were urged to focus on these second vaccination dose. Meanwhile, Maharashtra government has decided to extend timings of shops and restaurants in order to avoid overcrowding during festivals. It has allowed shops to operate till 11 p.m. and restaurants till 12 a.m. Currently, shops and restaurants are allowed to operate till 10 p.m. Also from 22nd October, amusement parks can be operated except for the water rides. Countrywide COVID-19 vaccination program was launched by Prime Minister Modi on 16th January 2021, and country is waiting anxiously for the historic moment when India will cross the landmark of 100 crore COVID-19 vaccine doses. Bureau Report, DD India.
Meanwhile, World Health Organization's Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus has lauded the mammoth efforts undertaken by the Indian government for vaccination against COVID-19. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya tweeted that he held a detailed interaction with Director General WHO, accompanied by other senior officials of the WHO on various issues related to health, including pandemic management and WHO reforms. DG WHO lauded the mammoth efforts undertaken by the Indian government for COVID-19 vaccination.
The record-breaking rainfall that has led to widespread destruction in Uttarakhand over the last couple of days is expected to reduce significantly from today. The Met Department has said that the state is likely to stay dry for the rest of the week. Uttarakhand as a whole received about 122 millimeters of rain in the 24-hour period between Monday and Tuesday. Nearly 40 casualties have been reported so far, with about 25 from Nainital alone. Police, SDRF, NDRF teams are working on relief operations, with thousands having been evacuated so far. Rescue and relief ops continue in full swing.
से अक्टूबर से तो मौसम बिल्कुल साफ हो जाएगा उत्तराखंड में, और आगे 8 से 10 दिन जो है कोई भी वेदर सिस्टम अब नहीं है, मौसम साफ रहेगा, दिन में धूप खिलेगी, सुबह शाम थोड़ा ठंडा रहेगा, उत्तर पश्चिम हवाएं अब प्रिवेल करेंगी, तो थोड़े जो न्यूनतम तापमान है वो 2-3 डिग्री नीचे आ सकते हैं सामान्य से, तो वो चीज़ तो रहेगी। बाकी जो वेदर एक्टिविटी है अब 8 से 10 दिन कुछ भी अब नहीं।
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed anguish over the loss of lives due to heavy rains in parts of Uttarakhand. In a tweet, he said, "May the injured recover soon. Rescue operations are underway to help those affected. I pray for everyone's safety and well-being." Also, Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami met those affected by heavy rains in Kumaon and Garhwal regions on Tuesday, announcing a compensation of 4 lakh rupees each to the next of kin of those who have lost their lives. Earlier, Dhami undertook an aerial survey of the affected areas along with State Disaster Management Minister Dhan Singh Rawat and State DGP Ashok Kumar to assess the damage caused by the rains. He instructed all district magistrates to assess the damage caused to farmers and send him a report at the earliest.
सभी लोगों से अनुरोध है कि इस स्थिति में सभी को धैर्य बना के रखना है, सारे लोगों को संयम बरतना है और सरकार हर स्थिति में हर संभव सहायता करने के लिए तैयार है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भी पूरी तरह से यहाँ के लिए हर संभव सहायता का आश्वासन दिया है। जो वायुसेना है वो अपने हेलीकॉप्टर यहाँ पर भेज रही है और जो लोग जहाँ भी फंसे हैं उनको सबको निकालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। रास्तों में जो हमारे पर्यटक आए हुए हैं उनके लिए जहाँ रास्ते बंद हैं उनको भी हम निकाल रहे हैं। हमने अनुरोध किया है कि फिलहाल अभी यात्रा न करें, किसानों का भी बहुत नुकसान हुआ है, उसके अभी हम आकलन कर रहे हैं।
While there is likely to be a reduction in the rainfall over eastern India from tomorrow, the rainfall activity will largely shift to southern peninsular India. The IMD has issued an orange alert in 11 districts of Kerala, including Thiruvananthapuram, Pathanamthitta, Kottayam, Ernakulam, Idukki, Thrissur, Palakkad, Malappuram, Kozhikode and Wayanad and also Kannur for today. While yellow alert has been issued for Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, which are expected to see significant rainfall today and tomorrow. The IMD authorities stated that the strengthening of easterlies from the Bay of Bengal will affect Kerala, Mahe, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry till October 23rd. The approaching western disturbance will continue to influence northern states including Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh and Himachal Pradesh, which reported snowfall on Tuesday. Now these regions will continue to receive precipitation either in the form of snow or rain in the coming days, though IMD has issued no warning. Ajay Joy is joining us to get us more on that. Ajay, we were given a broad outline of the, of the weather conditions which are expected in Kerala, but you let us know the current situation there. How has the day begun?
Yesterday there was no rainfall overnight. There was only isolated rainfall incidents across Kerala. So far it is okay, but the orange alert is still in place. So anytime rain may hit Kerala. And as you said, already 11 districts are under the orange alert, and the severity of alertness is more in the hilly areas and in those areas, in low-lying areas, especially in Kutanad region. And to take that into the context, for example, in Kottayam, where the worst landslide occurred, there are 33 identified landslide-prone areas, and from these areas, people are being evacuated. Many of them are already evacuated and placed in relief camps. In Kutanad, the evacuation from the low-lying areas has begun day before yesterday, so it's almost over by now. And as we are talking right now, almost 12 dams are opened. And these are basically opened to lower the level so that to accommodate water in case of a large-scale rainfall, which is expected today and tomorrow. So that means on a whole, alertness is on a high level. Despite it being an orange alert, what Revenue Minister said yesterday was an red alert-like readiness is being prepared by the administration today until the end of this week. That's what he said. As we speak right now, there are 304 relief camps.
All right.
Opened
Okay, Ajay, very quickly, I would want you to, explain to our viewers what does orange alert and yellow alert mean in terms of the warnings that have been given to these specific districts, talking of the severity of the weather conditions there and what precautions have to be put in place.
Orange alert and the yellow alert basically refers to the rainfall that are expected. So if you are talking about the one second. If you are talking about the rainfall, heavy and very heavy rainfall is expected. Probability is high. That's what the orange alert means. So basically, when in a normal situation, itself it is a little precarious situation. But if you consider what you call the gradient of Kerala topography being so steep in the Western Ghats, so that's where the worrisome scenario emerges right now.
All right.
And especially in the context of these landslide-prone areas, it becomes too huge. And that's why the dams the level is being lowered to accommodate water in it, so that it doesn't emerge any situation like a flood-like situation anywhere in Kerala.
All right, Ajay, thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent Ajay Joy telling us more about the situation presently in Kerala when we talk of the yellow and orange alert that has been issued in specific districts.
In fact, those visuals say it all. Rescue operations on in full swing there. And moving on now to commemorate the 146th birth anniversary of Sardar Patel, the Central Industrial Security Force has organized a cycle rally as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations. The rally was flagged off from the Aga Khan Palace at Yerwada in Pune district of Maharashtra yesterday. The Aga Khan Palace holds an important position in India's struggle for independence and played an important role during it. On the occasion, cyclists paid tributes at the tomb of Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi. The cycle rally started from Trivandrum and has travelled 1457 kilometers so far. It will reach Kevadia on October 31st on the birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel.
And one of the major concerns surrounding Indian cities is its urban planning. Residents seem to be grappling with issues of safety, commute, living spaces and also basic amenities such as clean air and drinking water. Persistent problems such as increased time of commute between work and office spaces and the safety of its citizens, particularly women and children through day and night, call for the advent of a new kind of architecture. The East Delhi hub will be centered on the concept of transit-oriented development, one which improves connectivity across different parts of the city through mass transit and reduces dependence on private vehicles. Our correspondent Tapas Bhattacharya spoke to the main architect firm along with National Building Construction Corporation, which is executing the centre's ambitious project. Take a look.
What can we expect from this East Delhi Transit Hub? It is making waves. It is a new concept, but what is the USP of this concept?
Here there is a new concept wherever there is a mass transit system such as the metro and a metro station, how you can densify that area and you can create a mixed use development. So people not only just live there and travel for hours to another part of the city, but working areas, living areas, recreational, health, education, all come together to create a little hub of a city by itself. One of the things East Delhi lacks, which is a lot of greenery, parks, open spaces. So this project is able to bring that into East Delhi because we've been able to create a vertical development. Also, the other important aspect is of sustainable development, because we do not want to rely too much on energy resources which are artificially generated. So this project is talking a lot about sustainability.
We're planning to use more natural resources and renewable energy resources in working this particular transit hub.
Absolutely. The whole concept of this is that it's a smart and sustainable living. So the planning principles, the design ideas, the language of the building, Everything is about creating, so whether it is enhancing people to have pedestrian networks, whether it is about being able to walk down to a shopping center, cycle tracks, all these kind of facilities which not only create an easy commute but a more energy efficient commute.
Kalkatuma also is very close to the Anandia bus stand and other public transport. Do you believe that people who will be staying there, it will benefit them? And also you guys have planned to include residential areas. What kind of residential area we are talking about? How many houses can be provided?
We have planned almost 6,500 flats for the residents. In first phase we are going to construct almost 1,700 flats for the residents. Including for economical weaker sections also, as the government is going to has committed to give the flats to residents, to everybody on the below the poverty line. So we have taken that idea into account. Being a this near to Anand Vihar station, this project will cater the transportation for Jewar Airport as well as Anand Vihar railway station, and we have got 2 interconnections of metro rail also. So nobody has to go out of the city, out of that smart city. All the facilities will be available in that dedicated this township only.
When can we expect, sir, this project to be completed?
Well, we have been given by Ministry 40 months to inaugurate that weaker sections flats for weaker sections by 24.
MPCC and CP Kukuraja both are working towards making sure that East Delhi hub becomes the role model for planning a smart city in the future. With camera person Surendra, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for TD India, Delhi.
And today marks Valmiki Jayanti. The day commemorates the birth anniversary of Maharishi Valmiki, who composed the Ramayana in Sanskrit. He is also referred to as Adi Kavi. On this special occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid his respects to Maharishi Valmiki. He also recalled the Maharishi's seminal contributions towards chronicling our rich past and glorious culture. He said that Valmiki ji's emphasis on social empowerment keeps inspiring us.
And now we get to all the international updates in our segment Across the Globe.
Starting off with news from neighboring Bangladesh. In the backdrop of the Kumila incident, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has instructed Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan to take immediate action against those involved in vandalizing of puja mandaps and attacks on homes of the Hindu community. After the cabinet meeting chaired by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka on Tuesday, Cabinet Secretary briefed the media that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has asked the Home Ministry to promptly investigate the issue of communal attacks and take action against those involved. She added that Islam does not authorize anyone to destroy things related to other religions in case of defamation of the Holy Quran. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in a statement issued on Tuesday, has said that the government of Bangladesh condemns in unequivocal terms incidents of attacks on Hindu religious sites and idols in different parts of Bangladesh. As an immediate measure, the government there has deployed border guard Bangladesh in 22 districts to aid the civil administration. Senior government leaders have visited a number of affected areas and assured the Hindu community of adequate protection and compensation for the damages incurred. The statement has said that some vested quarters opposed to Bangladesh's independence are trying to undermine the country's secular and pluralistic credentials in the world by attacking one of the biggest religious festivals of the country. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Bangladesh statement also said that the Constitution of Bangladesh guarantees protection of all citizens from any kind of discrimination.
North Korea has confirmed on Wednesday that it had test-fired a new ballistic missile from a submarine a day after authorities in South Korea and Japan detected an apparent weapons test. South Korea's military reported on Tuesday that it believed North Korea had fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile off the east coast, the latest in a string of North Korean missile tests. The new type submarine-launched ballistic missile was launched from the same submarine involved in a 2016 test of an older ballistic missile test. Also, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was not reported to have attended the test. Analysts noted that photos released by KCNA appear to show a thinner missile than North Korea's earlier designs, which means more but shorter range missiles could be stored on a single submarine and potentially putting nuclear-armed North Korea closer to fielding an operational ballistic missile submarine.
And checkpoints went up in the Ecuadorian city of Guayaquil on Tuesday after President Guillermo Lasso declared a state of emergency due to drug-related violence. Marines were seen stopping vehicles as well as searching people on the streets. The 60-day state of emergency will allow the military to join drug and arms confiscation operations in 9 of the country's 24 provinces, with patrols taking place 24 hours a day. Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso late on Monday declared a state of emergency in the Andean country as part of a crackdown on the consumption and trafficking of drugs. According to President Lasso, a conservative who took office in May, the move is a response to rising homicide figures nationwide and other crimes related to narcotics seizures. During his statement, Lasso also said that more than 70% of violent deaths in the province of Guayas are in some way related to drug trafficking. He said he would sponsor legislation to support security forces in efforts to combat crime and create an entity to defend officers prosecuted for simply doing their duty. Violent deaths have also risen within prisons. Last month, 119 people were killed in disturbances in a prison in Guayaquil, which the government has blamed on fighting between drug gangs.
In Texas, one person was injured in a plane crash in Wallace County. The plane was carrying 21 people when it crashed near the airport runway at Houston Executive Airport. The Federal Aviation Administration said that the plane rolled through a fence and caught fire in a field while attempting to depart, leaving a smoldering debris field. It said the National Transportation Safety Board and the FAA will investigate the crash.
In Peru, local authorities in the Peruvian Juarez municipality were seen using water cannons in a bid to remove street vendors from sidewalks. In videos released by local authorities, police were seen on top of a water truck using hoses to spray the street vendors. Some angry people were seen yelling at the police and trying to climb the truck.
Spanish volcano experts say that the Cumbre Vieja volcanic eruption is unlikely to stop. The National Geographic Institute's Volcano Monitoring Department said that the eruption is unlikely to stop for at least another week, but there was no way to predict how long it would last. Streams of red-hot lava have engulfed almost 800 hectares of land, destroying about 2,000 buildings and many banana plantations since the eruption started on September 19. More than 6,000 people have had to leave their homes because of the lava.
Meanwhile, several La Palma residents converge in El Paso municipality to pray for Cumbre Vieja volcano to stop after a month of eruptions. The worshippers carrying Virgin del Pino images prayed for the volcano to stop, devastating the island. Other processions were held in Tijerazo and Santa Cruz de La Palma.
A quick look at COVID numbers from across the world. As per the figures, COVID has infected more than 24 crore 23 lakh people, while the number of recoveries stands above 21 crore 96 lakh globally. The virus has claimed over 49 lakh 28,000 lives all across the world, and the US continues to remain the worst affected country with 4 crore 59 lakh cases, and the number of lives lost due to the virus stays above 7 lakh 48,000.
As Russia's daily COVID-19 deaths and cases hit new record highs, Russia has proposed the shutting of workplaces for a week at the start of November. Deputy Prime Minister Tatiana Golikova proposed that October 30th to November 7th be deemed non-working days to combat rising infections. Golikova said people should have to present QR codes on their mobile phones to show they are vaccinated or had recovered from COVID to get access to public events or places. The sharp rise in the number of cases and fatalities has led the Kremlin to urge people to get vaccinated. And Russia has so far registered over 80,60,000 cases of COVID-19 with more than 2,25,000 fatalities.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary has tested positive for COVID-19. He is fully vaccinated and is experiencing mild congestion. He has isolated himself and is working from home. This is at least the second time COVID has interrupted his work schedule since taking office.
And it's time to move on and take stock of what's trending on the World Wide Web in our next segment, the Web News Review.
And for the Web News Review, Vikas Sarthi is joining us. Vikas, good morning. It's over to you. Let us know what all have you picked up for us from the social media platforms.
Good morning, Preeti. The first news is related to the fierce rains in Uttarakhand after Kerala. Now we are seeing that Uttarakhand has been hit by unprecedented rain, and since last evening the official figure was 34 people have been confirmed dead, though the local administration says that they fear that this figure might go up because several places have already been completely cut off from the rest of the area, so this tally may go further. The second story is coming from Punjab, where finally ex-CM Amrinder Singh late night announced that he will float his own party, and he also said that it is the issue is more related to the state and the welfare of the people than his own personal issues, and he says that he will also seek any kind of arrangement with the BJP. So that possibility has also not been ruled out by Amrinder Singh. Finally, after several weeks now, he has announced that he will float his own party. The third story is related to the Jammu and Kashmir, where local administration is making all arrangements to make safe outside people living in the valley, and they have been moved to more secure places. Local administration has said that they are trying their best to ensure that the non-local people remain in safe areas, and since they have been targeted by the terrorists for some weeks now, all arrangements are being put in place. The next story is related to the Kushinagar airport. Today Prime Minister will inaugurate this airport. So primarily the focus of this airport was to boost Buddhist pilgrimage circuit, but this particular airport will also help eastern Uttar Pradesh districts and some districts of Bihar to connect with the air route. So that is the very important airport for that particular region. The last story is from Supreme Court. The Tribune has reported that around 70,000 cases are pending before the Supreme Court, and more important thing is that 421 constitution benches are yet to decide on several issues, some very important issues. So that figure has been reported by the Tribune, that how many cases are still pending before the Supreme Court, despite the all effort from the Chief Justice of India to keep pendency at the lowest level. Over to you, Preeti.
All right, Vikas, thank you so much for joining in with that Web News Review. And from here, let's turn focus on to business updates.
And we begin with news from the world markets. US stock indices closed higher on Tuesday with the biggest boost from the technology and healthcare sectors. The investors appeared to bet on solid quarterly reports, even as some worried that it was too early to celebrate. In its fifth straight session of gains, the benchmark S&P 500 index neared its early September record high, as investors passed earnings reports to see how companies are managing inflation and supply chain woes. The S&P 500 gained 0.7%, off 0.4% from its record hit in early September. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.6%, the highest close in 2 months. Tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite rose 0.7%.
Up next, Sports Track to get you all the sports updates.
And India will take on Australia in the second warm-up match of the T20 World Cup at the ICC Academy ground in Dubai. Both teams enter the match on the back of wins in previous games. India had beaten the England side by 7 wickets in their first warm-up match. While England had posted a total of 188 for 5, the Virat Kohli-led Indian side had chased down the target with 6 balls to spare. On the other hand, Australia beat New Zealand in their first warm-up rubber. Batting first, the Kiwis scored 158 for 7 in their allotted 20 overs. The Kangaroos chased down the target with 3 wickets and 1 ball to spare.
Meanwhile, with a superb bowling show from Mustafizur Rahman and Shakib, Bangladesh defeated Oman in their second match of the T20 World Cup at the Al Amirat cricket ground yesterday. Now, this was a must-win game for Group B favourites Bangladesh to stay alive in the tournament, as Oman and Scotland were at the top 2 spots in the group. Jatinder Singh top scored for Oman with his 40 runs not, but no other batsman looked in a good touch against Bangladesh bowlers. Earlier, while batting first, Bangladesh were bundled out for 153 runs in 20 overs as Oman's Bilal Khan returned with the figures of 3 for 18. Fayaz Butt took 3 wickets, Mohammad Naeem took 64, top score for Bangladesh and added 80 runs with Shakib Al Hasan, whose score was 42 for the 3rd wicket. Bangladesh with 2 points are still at the 3rd spot in the Group B points table, while Scotland lead with 4 points.
And Scotland are 1 win away from qualifying for the Super 12 stage of the Men's T20 World Cup after claiming a second victory in 3 days. Scotland, who shocked Bangladesh on the opening day of the tournament, beat Papua New Guinea by 17 runs in Oman. Scotland will progress as winners of Group B if they beat Oman tomorrow.
And the first day of the 5-day BWF World Tour Super 1000 badminton tournament turned out to be a fruitful one for the Indian shuttlers. The majority of Indian players posted wins to move in on dens in Denmark yesterday. Star Indian shuttler PV Sindhu made a comeback after winning the bronze medal at the Tokyo Olympics. She did not disappoint her fans on the opening day of the Victor Denmark Open with a quick-fire victory in the women's singles first round. 4th seed made light work of Neslihan Yigit of Turkey with a commanding 21-12, 21-10. That was a victory in exactly half an hour. Sindhu will now lock horns with Ireland's Buchanan Ombergan for a place in the quarterfinals today. And in men's singles, winner of the 2017 Denmark Open, Kidambi Srikanth defeated compatriot B Sai Praneeth 21-14, 21-11 in 30 minutes. And with this win, Srikanth improved the head-to-head record of 6-3 against his regular practice partner Sai Praneeth, the world number 15. Srikanth had won Denmark Open in 2017, and world number 4 Srikanth will take on world number 1 Kento Momota of Japan in the second round today. Also, Sameer Verma shocked higher-ranked Ireland's world number 21 Kanlarit Vidit Saran for 21-17, 21-14 in 42 minutes. World number 28 Sameer is likely to square off against 3rd seed Anders Antonsen of Denmark in the second round. Also, Indian doubles players had a good day. World number 7 Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty thumped the English pair of Callum Hemming and Stephen Stallworth 23-21 and 21-15 in their first round outing.
And moving on from sports to today's episode of Saga of Freedom. Our glorious fight for freedom is one of the greatest struggles that the modern world has ever witnessed. In this episode, we bring you glimpses of this valiant struggle every day. In today's edition, we talk about 2 leaders who took the freedom struggle to new levels. We'll be talking about Bhupesh Gupta and V.S. Achyutanandan, who played a key role in India's struggle for freedom. Take a look.
On 20th of October 1914, Bhupesh Gupta was born at Itna in the erstwhile Mymensingh district of Bengal province in British India. He studied at the Scottish Church College in the University of Calcutta. He joined the Bengal revolutionaries in his school days. He had been held in detention for 4 years and more.
Later, Bhupesh went to London and joined the clandestine group of Indian communists. He actively participated in the India League's propaganda work among the British public, pressing for India's demand for complete independence. Despite poor health due to his years in prison, Bhupesh Gupta was singularly active, eluding the British police.
Bhupesh's circle, however, was not confined to communists. Young, old and many others were drawn to him. This way, it was not surprising that he was very friendly with Feroz Gandhi and Indira Nehru, friendships which survived many a storm. All three of them returned home by the same boat during wartime.
Coming back, Bhupesh went straight into the Communist Party's central underground, where he worked under P.C. Joshi for some time. In 1941, he came out in the open and became active in Bengal. He was one of the pioneers in setting up the Friends of the Soviet Union along with Jyoti Basu. From the days in Britain, both were close to each other.
Close comradeship continued uninterrupted until 1964, when the communist movement was split, Bhupesh choosing to stay with the CPI while Jyoti joined the leadership of the CPM. By the time independence came, Bhupesh had emerged as a young but significant political personality in Bengal. There was the promise of many heights to conquer.
He was a member of the Rajya Sabha for 5 terms from West Bengal. From 3rd of April 1952 till his death, he was a skilled parliamentarian. Bhupesh came to eminence by his fearless courage to stand up against injustice or inequity, or to uphold national dignity.
One can narrate 100 episodes bringing out Bhupesh's dauntless fight within the Rajya Sabha. He died in Moscow on the 6th of August 1981.
Belika Kate Sangaran Achyutanandan was born on 20th of October 1923 to Sankaran and Akkamma in Purapra, Alapura, Travancore. Since he lost both parents at a very young age, he was forced to quit his studies after finishing the 7th standard. He participated in the freedom movement and the communist movement. Later, V.S. organized agricultural workers in Kuttanadu and agitated against the rulers.
At 16, he became a dedicated organizer of choir factory workers. He was noted for his simplicity, dedication and deep reading. V.S. was in the forefront of the Punapra Vayalar uprising against the policies of C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, Diwan of Travancore, who wanted to establish an American model government in Travancore. He was arrested on the 28th of October 1946 and taken to Punjar police station.
He was beaten up severely in the lockup. V.S. spent 5.5 years in jail and 4 years underground during his political life. He has also been active in parliamentary politics. He was elected as a member of Kerala Legislative Assembly 7 times.
He became the 11th Chief Minister of Kerala in 2006 at the age of 82.
And now we get to the temperatures across major cities of the country.
Well, that's all we have for you in today's edition of Breakfast News. We hope you enjoyed our show. And as always, we'd like to remind all of you not to forget COVID protocols even as the battle against COVID-19 continues. Maintain social distancing as you step out of your homes, wear a mask, and also continue maintaining hand hygiene.
Yes, indeed, very important points put forth. Remember, the fight is still not over. It's the festive season. Remember to contribute towards this fight and make sure all those eligible also get yourself vaccinated, and that would further give more momentum. And also, every day we leave you with some beautiful glimpses, and as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, celebrations took place in Russia, where 75 Bollywood trained dancers of Russia paid tributes to the legendary actor Raj Kapoor. Around 18 super hit songs from Raj Kapoor's films were performed by the artists. The famous song from Raj Kapoor's film Awara has enjoyed huge popularity in Russia. Before we end the breakfast show, we leave you with this report. Take a look. Have an equally beautiful day ahead. Bye-bye.
As part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, 75 Bollywood-trained dancers of Russia commemorated the 75th anniversary of India's independence with the everlasting memories of the legendary Indian film icon Raj Kapoor. The great actor was a favorite of the Russian audiences, and every film and song of Raj Kapoor is appreciated even today. Leading choreographers Leena Goyal from Amrapali Group, Ashwani and Svetlana Nigam from Tarang Group, Lydia Kunova, Leela Prem Group, Shipra Joshi Jawaharlal Nehru Cultural Center, Tatiana Klichnikova Leela Prem Mix, Natalia Odegeva Amritsar Group came together with 75 of their students to put up the magnum opus. The evening began with a brief remembrance of the legend by Vama Safonova, a popular singer and television personality of Russia and a multiple cancer survivor. She spoke of the 1967 song about yogis by Vladimir Vysotsky, mentioning Raj Kapoor as one of the three best-known symbols of Indian culture in the Soviet Union, along with Shiva and yoga. She also shared Raj Kapoor's love for Russia and its philosophy. In the show, nearly 18 super-hit songs from the iconic Awara Hoon to the heart-wrenching, soulful Jeena Yahan, Marna Yahan were performed with utmost zest. Bureau Report, Daily India.